Hey guys, welcome to our podcast where it has to be said. My name is Elvis.
And I'm Denise.
Babe, let's talk tonight.
So today we are gonna talk. And I actually gave Elvis this topic on a night that he was a little upset with me this past weekend. So I jotted down like immediately that he kind of reacted. I wrote it down, so I had like the whole episode already in mind.
So I was the inspiration behind all of this. That's what you're saying.
He brought the inspiration, and it's about the silent treatment. I think that many shut up. Why are you laughing?
Because the silent treatment was the one that inspired you to talk about it.
So funny.
Go ahead.
You're corny for that one.
Go ahead.
But anyways, so talking about the silent treatment, I think that many couples at one point or another may have experienced, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's some couples that have never had to experience kind of a little bit of that silent treatment. But Elvis,
If you haven't experienced that, you're missing out because look, inspirations come when you get that silent treatment. Apparently, I'm learning this as we go. This is not something that we discussed before the podcast. So,
anyways, so point is about 2 nights, like a few days ago, Elvis wanted to address something late at night that he didn't like that happened throughout the day, whatever. And I'm doing the dishes at the time, and I'm like, I don't really want to talk about this right now.
Yeah, that was the only time we could talk about it because we had just finished our day.
All right. Anyway, so he's like, I'm like, I don't really want to talk about this right now. One, I wasn't going to be able to do nothing with the information he gave me at that moment because it was already late at night. It's something that I had to address with somebody else at a later time. So I'm like, this is not the time. I don't want to talk about it. I'm tired. Like, let's just chill. So because of that, he took it as, all right, so we're not going to talk about this. I'm not going to talk to you at all. He didn't verbalize that, but he was quiet the rest of the night during shower time, like during the time that we sit in our bed, either flipping through the TV. Well, no, there was no flipping the TV at that point. I think he went straight to bed.
Could it be that I was tired?
Oh, please. That's like
is there a possibility that I was tired?
Please.
Is there a possibility that I was meditating in the situation and thinking, how could I address this the following day?
He was not.
Could the possibility be there?
No,
that's my
question. It wasn't there. Anyways, he was very no good night, no nothing. And I know because
because I fell asleep.
No, because I asked you something y tú te quedaste calladito, so you didn't say nothing. So I got upset because I'm like, first of all, we're very far into our relationship at this point. You shouldn't be giving me no silent treatment at this point. Like, this is old news.
Again, it's a possibility that I was just tired.
This is old news. This is stuff that we used to do when we were very younger minded. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we shouldn't go through this again. And I'm like, this is a little hurtful. It's childish. I was upset, right?
But yet you got inspired.
It's
amazing what things could do sometimes.
Shut up. That's a different message.
I'm not saying that I was giving you necessarily the silent treatment. All I'm saying is it inspired you, so it wasn't all negative.
Okay, Elvis.
But go ahead.
Stop trying to twist it. So then the next day I'm like, yo, bro, like, I didn't like that. And he's like, oh, I wasn't trying to give you silent treatment and whatever. And I'm like, but you did give me silent treatment that night. So anyway, so that's what we're here to talk about.
So let's talk. It has to be said, right? That's the name of the podcast. So let's talk about it.
So the silent treatment is a refusal to verbally communicate with someone.
Okay.
Often as a means of punishment, emotional manipulation, or control. Based on the information I provided, Elvis was operating in the means of punishment.
You judging me right now. So you getting the one of it. I'm going to judge Elvis right now. You don't know what was going through my mind.
Yeah, but you can't tell me that I don't feel the way I feel.
And you can't tell me I feel the way I feel. It's the same thing. So wait a second. I can't tell you that, but you could tell me what I was thinking.
Correct.
No, because what if I wanted
Elvis, you're not. He's saying this now to kind of like do tit for tat. But when we spoke the next day, he's like, no, I didn't want to talk about, since you didn't want to talk about that, I had nothing else to say. In other words, because I didn't want to speak about a specific topic, he chose to give me the silent treatment.
No,
you admitted it.
I chose not to talk.
You admitted it.
I'm going to agree to disagree, okay?
Yeah, Anyways, point is that the silent treatment can be hurtful to your partners, right? Granted.
When you do it intentionally, absolutely.
No, and even if you do it unintentionally over time, like how many people in relationships get hurt unintentionally? Oh, I didn't mean to say that, or I didn't mean to react that way. Perfect example. We talked about personality types a few episodes back.
Yeah.
And your personality type tends to be blunt and straightforward.
Yeah.
Without doesn't
and that's
mean
what I was telling you.
Unintentionally hurting somebody, but you hurt them.
Was I hurting you when I was telling you
everything?
Was I hurting you when I was telling you?
You hurt my feelings when you shut me out.
No. But what I was saying, what the situation I was addressing.
No, the situation you were addressing wasn't hurting my feelings.
Okay.
Your reaction when I said, let's put a pin on this, I don't want to talk about this right now, that's what hurt my feelings.
Oh, okay.
That's what hurt. Your action after that. Because in the silent treatment, you're being dismissive to your partner. This is how I perceive it as a person who was offended, right? That doesn't mean whether or not it's not about your intention. It's about what happened, right? You did not answer me. You did not give me a good night, right? Or like even verbally, like, oh, good night, I love you. So you kind of give.
I love you, baby.
Thank you. I know that. But you give the indication of that person to your partner that is like, it hurts them in the moment. So it's like, imagine continually unintentionally hurting somebody, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's your case, but there's so many other relationships that continue to operate in the silent treatment as a form of kind of getting across a message. And what you're really doing to the other person is kind of building resentment. It says that it can affect their need of belonging, their self-esteem, and even their meaningful existence. So it's like, you don't know how it can affect someone, your silence.
Yeah.
Right? In that way, right? Because I feel like sometimes silence is important, but when you're doing the silence treatment in that way, it hurts. And then I was reading a study that night. I got so inspired that night. I think I got triggered because it just took me back to like previous ways that we were.
That's what I did it. That's the reason why I did it.
Shut up. So I think that's what it was. Because I'm like, yo, he hasn't ignored me like this in years. So I'm like, this is not cute. And it was saying that the silence treatment stimulates, right, a part of your brain. I'm not even gonna mention the name or whatever, because I can't pronounce it.
You say in Spanish, I'll probably understand
it. It stimulates a part of your brain that registers pain. So it means that people not only feel emotional pain when given the silent treatment, but some of them could experience some physical pain in that.
Yeah, I just think that sometimes we don't realize how much your partner could affect your partner in one way or another. I didn't intentionally do it. Let's just say I did give you the silent treatment.
He still won't admit it.
Let's just move forward. Let's move forward. And forget the past. I would just say that sometimes
mad people are gonna be texting me like, "Yo, I can't believe Elvis right now." Watch.
No, I just don't think that we realize the effect that you could do to your partner by just ignoring them.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think that was my intention, right? Mm-hmm. But the results are going to come that way regardless, because it's going to make you feel the ways that you were mentioning based on your research.
Yeah.
And I think that we also have to kind of play a role where, man, I don't want that done to myself either, right? Yeah. I think that we don't realize how negative effective it could be to your partner because it was never probably done to you. Like, I don't even think you ever had a silent treatment with me. At all, right?
I think I haven't spoke to you, but in reaction to how you've reacted to me. So like, if you stop talking to me after a while of me saying like, hey, or trying to like get you to kind of cave in.
Yeah,
I'm
but
like,
if I stop talking, then it wouldn't affect me because I like it's your silence.
Yeah,
we're both silent. So,
yeah, no, I'm sure my silence sometimes is a favor to you.
Let's not go towards that direction. What I'm saying is that sometimes we don't realize how bad that could be, right, towards your partner. And I don't necessarily think that we do it intentionally. Like, I wasn't intentionally like, oh, I'm going to get back at her since she's, because that's very childish. Let's be honest.
It is.
I just think that sometimes we react that way and it's not necessarily the right way to kind of, we get spoiled sometimes. We're like, you know what? I'm not even going to talk because you don't want to talk about this. And sometimes you should have a silence and, okay, let me just get a moment to breathe and then let's discuss it.
Yeah.
But not necessarily let me not talk to you at all, right? Because we could talk about other stuff, right? We could just talk about anything else because there was part of the day. I mean, we enjoyed that day. It was a great
Mm-hmm.
day. So I think that we just got to go back to the positive things versus just focusing on the, oh, let's address this right now. And I think we get caught up in just trying to focus on what we want to address, and we don't realize how much it's going to affect our partner.
So silence can be important if it's to refrain from
Causing an argument.
causing
Yeah.
argument or disagreements, or kind of learning when
Yeah, but
things should be discussed.
it's not a silent of everything, right? It's not like, okay, since I don't want to argue with you, we're just not going to talk. No, let's not talk about this topic,
Mhm.
right? Let's
Yeah.
talk about things that is going to change the atmosphere,
Yeah.
is going to bring us positive, is going to bring us joy, right? If we talk about the girls, if we talk about church, if we talk about God, if we talk about our friends, right? That's
Yeah.
going to make us happy. But if we're talking about bills, if we're talking about I gotta lose weight, if we're gonna talk about all this negative stuff, that yes, I'm gonna address it. I'm not saying put it in the closet
And never,
and never address it. What I'm saying
because it'll
is
resurface if you don't
absolutely
address
we
it.
have to address it eventually, but I just think that there's a time and a place for everything, and we need to pick our battles in a daily basis, right? Because I feel like that was a battle itself. I put you in silent treatment, right? Not knowing the effect it was going to do towards you. And that even triggered you to go to the past. I never want you to feel like you did in the past when I was really not the
Yeah.
guy I am today,
Yeah.
right? And will never be my intention.
Yeah.
If anything, I want you to feel loved. I want you to feel special. I want you to feel like our relationship is growing. I want you to feel like we're really doing and focusing on what God has planned for us, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we believe that God already structured and did the plan in our lives. It's just we haven't seen it completely fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where I want you to be. But sometimes, we could get a little
Yeah.
caught up in the moment.
Yeah, and I think moments will trigger sometimes thoughts or things that have happened, but it's kind of also how we react to it. Because even though it kind of brought up that things, I didn't wake up like in an argumentative attitude or anything. Because there were times before that I would go to sleep still upset because of the silent treatment, and wake up still upset and ready to argue or take two in that situation. But I was like, you
But
know
you
what?
realize that I wasn't trying to get back at
I
you, right? No,
know,
I
I
just want to
know.
make it clear. Like I wasn't trying to like, oh, I'm gonna get her since she don't want to talk about this. I just think that I automatically went into, you know what? Let me not even
Yeah,
talk.
you shut down, but it felt like that because it felt like, oh, it felt a little petty, like the
Yeah.
reaction. That's how it felt. But it's kind of like, how do you know when there's a problem, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to see, like, you can tell after a while people's intention when
Yeah.
they are giving you silent treatment, right? So it's kind of like if they're intending to hurt that person with a silence, right? So it has to be some intense. How long is the silent treatment, right? Like, is it a few hours, days, weeks? There's people that go through silent treatment for a long period of time, which that's when it's like, this is really a problem.
I don't know how you could do that as a couple.
But people
Because
do it, and people do it, and there's parents that do that to their kids, that
yeah,
give them
no,
the
that's
silent treatment. And you don't realize how hurtful it can be. Like, so if it's saying that as an adult speaking in partnership, the study, right, about how it affects the brain and inflicts pain.
for kids, it got to be worse.
So imagine for a child or a teenager who's already going through so many changes, so many issues with, their identity and self-esteem,
Yeah.
that your silence as a parent, that block, how much impact it can be to them, right?
Yeah.
It is also, and it can also come off as abusive if if being silent is dependent on that person, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if only you get to decide when the silence ends, right? Or if you talk, and this is, couples do this too, when they talk to other people but not to their partner. So if it's me and
That's
you
horrible.
in an argument, and let's say you decide to ignore me and you're just talking to Ellie, or even sometimes as parents, we sometimes in like an argument, like, oh, oh, Ellie, tell your mom this, tell your dad that, instead of kind of having that conversation, you're giving your partner the silence treatment and involving somebody else.
And that's a seed that you're planting on your own kid.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your kid sees that you're either allowing that from mom or from pops, I mean, when he or she gets in a relationship, I saw it in my household. So
Yeah.
I'm going to allow it when I get in a relationship. But if they see that, yes, there's ups and downs, but I owe some type of respect towards, mom and dad, then that's what she's gonna want to have in her own
Yep.
relationship or his own relationship.
Yep. And then it's kind of like, so it's like, when you are having those moments where your partner may be giving you silent treatment, you got to check in and see how long is your partner doing it? What are their intentions behind giving you the silent treatment, right? Is it to kind of, do they stop giving you the silent treatment when they get what they want from you, right? Because it doesn't have to necessarily be that, Elvis got quiet and shut down when he was trying to have a conversation. I wasn't ready to have that conversation at that moment. But there's other times that there's partners that get silent treatment because of simply not getting their way.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to do this with me today. So because you're not going to do it with me, I'm going to stay quiet, or I'm going to stay quiet until I get this done, right? So
you're really not going to get anywhere
I
that
know,
way.
But in their mind, that's like a form of, kind of manipulating and trying to control the situation.
And I feel like they'll create that as a habit as well. And you as a partner, if you allow that since the very beginning, it's just going to continue on. Like, I mean, you eventually have to, I would say immediately stop it, right? It's like us. You're like, told me, you're like, hey, babe, you gotta give me a silent treatment, right? I didn't necessarily saw it that way. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, I reacted that way, but that wasn't my intention. Like, I would not want to harm you anyway. I just got silent.
Yep. And speaking of like a red flag or a pattern, I found one online. I don't know where I found this one, but it says a wife whose husband severe. This is like a person who did a study, and he said a wife whose husband severed communication with her. Severed, I'm sorry, meaning ended communication with her early in their marriage. It says that she endured 4 decades of silence. That's 40 years. And only ended when her husband died. Williams said 40 years of eating meals by herself, watching TV by herself, 40 years of being invisible. When I asked her why she stayed with him for all that time, Williams said she answered simply, because at least he kept a roof over my head.
That's crazy.
But that's how much, and I'm sure there's more behind to that.
Yeah, absolutely, of
scenario.
course.
But he was doing a study on the silent treatment and the psychological effects of that form of abuse. Yeah, he was a psychologist, so I guess did research on it, and that was one of the participants who shared that, and which.
What year was that done? Does it tell you the year?
This study,
no. That had to be years ago, where one person would only work in the household.
Babe, there's a lot of people who still have one main worker. I want to be one of those.
Yeah, I think it's just we're in New York, so it's completely different.
That still happens, okay? That still does happen. I don't know what year was this, but I'll find it later.
That's fine.
But and it goes to show that there's different reasons why people choose to stay in relationships.
What really hit me, and I don't want to go back, but I want to go back, is our kids.
Oh, like, what I said?
No, yeah, because I'm thinking the times that I would get angry with Ellie and I would not talk to her. But then, that was years back ago, right? It's like, as teenagers, we expect them to be so perfect, right? They're not going to dirty, they're not going to smoke, they're not going to drink, they're not going to have sex beforehand, they're going to love Jesus, they're going to dress appropriate, right? We expect them to be so perfect, yet we don't expect them to be like us. Like, we wasn't perfect. I was horrible when I was younger. And I feel like when they do become young and they do, meaning like they socialize like a teenager would, right? They're gonna do reckless stuff. They're gonna make wrong choices, and they're gonna do teenager stuff. And I feel like sometimes we have our expectancy level so high and the pressure so high on them that they end up doing worse stuff than us.
Yeah.
Just because we're giving them that treatment. And then if we start giving them the silent treatment on top of that, I mean, that effect that could have over them is horrible.
And then they go through so much already anxieties and thoughts, like irrational thinking.
That was
and so many,
the word anxiety.
Right?
I mean, that just gives them.
They go through so we create the anxiety with putting so many pressures and expectations on them that are a little bit unrealistic for their age. But then we create even another layer of anxiety by shutting down and giving them that silence. It's kind of like, what are you thinking? Are you mad at me? Right? Even, Ellie sometimes, she'll be, if we're a little too quiet, oh, is everything okay, right? That's a little bit of the anxiety kind of operating, kind of makes you feel like, oh, is something wrong? Did I do something? Or are you mad at me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So doing that, and I'm not saying that necessarily is because of that, but, they have their set of anxieties already and have their assumptions about how we react or how we respond or what we don't say or say. So it's kind of like being mindful that we shouldn't practice silent treatment on our children either, right? Because then look at this lady who endured 40 years. I mean, I'm granted there's probably other underlying stuff
Yeah,
that
there has to
happened,
be other stuff going on
but
there.
it could have started from just being raised in a home where she was used to silent treatment being a normal way of avoiding confrontation, having discussions, and not speaking to one another, right? Um,
A lot of these habits start in an early age.
yeah,
And I think that's why I was mentioning about our kids, because I mean, we want to do the best we can as parents and show them. We're not going to show them the best household in the world. We're not
mm-hmm,
going to show them that there's perfection in a marriage, but
right,
we're going to show them that throughout the ups and downs, we always have to work on improving ourselves, right? And that we're gonna make mistakes, but we're gonna get up from whatever mistakes we make, and communicate ourselves with whatever's happening. And I think that we created that so much in our household as far as a habit of talking with each other, that she's always like, "Hey, listen, what's going on?
yeah,
Let's talk. You're too quiet." Like you mentioned before, it's like that's the type of relationship you want to have with your kids.
yeah. And I think that even with your partner, communication is essential. Like being able to express, like, hey, this is kind of like hurting my feelings or is making me feel this way. And, making sure you're identifying that is you feeling that way, right? Versus like accusatory, like, oh, you're always doing this. You make me feel this. Or no, I feel sad when, I'm trying to talk to you and you don't want to respond to me, right? Like, so kind of addressing
Well,
like what's going on.
Well, I think that's why I said it's crazy how we can't, as a married couple, that we can't talk, because I have sometimes that I get upset that you just hang up the phone, or you hang up too fast, or we can't even talk, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna talk to you until tonight. But that doesn't happen. We talk to each other right away afterward. So it's like a lot of times we say that we're gonna do this, but we really don't do this, and I don't know where I was going with this, but
No, but I guess you're saying because like, sometimes he likes to check in when I'm like while I'm at
always,
work, right?
yeah,
And there's times that I can like maybe engage a little bit more in conversation because usually like if I'm driving to a visit, I have the time there.
yes,
But if I'm in the office, I'm in an office space, I don't really like talking
yeah.
because I'm mindful of other, coworkers, and also I don't want people in my business, right?
Yeah.
Depending what the conversation is. Um, or I don't want to be rude to a coworker who's with me. So sometimes it bothers him, but I think he also knows, like, all right, she's working. It's not like,
No, I know. I just what I was going with it. Now I know. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome.
We just have to create habits of wanting to talk to each other always. Like something happens in my life. It could be the most simplest thing. I got free food. I don't know. Whatever. I got
Mm-hmm.
whatever happened in my life. You're the first person I want to tell,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like if you have that habit with your partner of always wanting that, I mean, we're always gonna want to be talking to each other.
Yeah.
It's like Ellie. When she comes from school, I'm like, Ellie, so what happened in school today? Any drama? Did I miss anything? What's going on? Did you learn something? Every single day, that's the same question I ask her,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to create that habit of, there's days I forget to ask her and she just tells me, hey, so
Yeah.
school was good, or school was fun, or I learned this in
Yeah.
school, because I created that habit with her, and I created that intentionally, that way that when days come that are bad and she doesn't communicate with me and I don't ask, I know something's going on
Yeah.
and I have to address it right away.
Yeah. And I think that even as partners too, we should separate time to talk, right? Elvis and I are fortunate enough to have that flexibility to kind of speak on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But then there's other times we set a time, whether it's date night to go out to eat or separate some time or for coffee or something, where we're intentional more with the conversations, right?
And we put
Because
the phones away
yeah,
too.
putting the phones away, putting away the distractions, and really discussing like how we want to continue growing, how to make things work. So even something as the silent treatment, being able to sit and have a conversation, like, I didn't really like that, and let's talk about it,
Yeah.
which we did
Yeah,
talk
we did.
about it, and we're talking about it again now.
Yeah.
Um, helps in that, right? And I think that when it comes to speaking, is like, yeah, learning the difference between I'm cutting you off and don't want to talk to you because I'm bothered and I'm gonna dismiss you, right? Versus I'm bothered and I need a minute to kind of get my thoughts together before I say something
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna offend. And I think that's an important difference between the silent treatment and taking time to be quiet, to process before you just, react and respond, right? So I think that an important part of it, and I think with this we can close, is to think before you speak, right?
Absolutely.
And the acronym for think is think of what? Things that are true, things that are helpful, that spells out the word think, things that are inspiring, things that are necessary, and things that are kind. If you take them a moment to think and analyze if any of what you're saying is true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind, then say it. And if it's not, learn when not to say it and measure what is necessary, right? If I'm going to give a criticism, is it going to be beneficial to
Are you going to
to
grow
the
out of
relationship? Am
that?
I going to grow out of it? Or I'm just going to say it because it
I
bothers
want to
me?
hurt
And
somebody
yeah,
or I want to come back at them. Yeah.
yeah. So when it comes to silent treatment, don't give your partner a silent treatment, but just think before you speak.
Absolutely. Good talk.
It was a good talk.
Yeah. And it was said.
It had to be said.
And it was said. Take care, guys. Have a good one.